So let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet before we go ahead and get started. Sometimes the tubes, you know, they take a second or two. There's feds in there, FBI agents just bouncing around, scrounging around with their Where's Waldo books and so on. And we want to make sure things are working. It looks like they are. That's tremendous news. Let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney broadcasting from the Valley of the Sun, deep in downtown Phoenix, Arizona. And today we are talking about whispers. We have some rumors afoot that we need to dig into. For a long time here, we've been covering the Trump prosecutions. We've got many of them at hand that we're going to unpack. But the biggest one that is drawing a lot of attention is the Trump prosecution taking place out of the federal level. So specifically, Special Counsel Jack Smith, you see him here. And we just today got a new image, a new video of Jack Smith. He's emerging. He is coming out of the depths of the Justice Department, scurried around in the little cavernous, sulfurous bowels of the DOJ. He's out now. And so that's what he looks like. We're going to see him walking around. And we've got rumors that there's going to be an indictment pretty soon. As we've been speculating here, I don't know that they're doing all of this for nothing. So it is getting close to being time. And now he is showing himself, right? This is by design. So they're doing this intentionally. Now, Jim Jordan is demanding answers about this. Yesterday, we talked about Trump's lawyers showing up in D.C. to meet with him. And Jim Jordan now wants to know about the size and the scope of the investigation. How many people are involved in this? What all are you investigating? How extensive does your investigation go? And so we'll take a look at a couple of those letters that Jim Jordan sent over to the DOJ and the FBI. We're also learning that there's a second grand jury that is being convened in Florida, which is interesting. This is the confidential classified documents scandal. And so we've got a comment on that. There's NBC's just been salivating over this thing. We also have George Conway, who was weighing in on this. And we have Bill Barr and Ted Cruz. Bill Barr walks us through this, and he's basically saying, yeah, I think that Trump is going to be prosecuted. We'll also listen to see what Ted Cruz has to say. He's got an interesting theory, which I think might be true, which is prosecuting Hunter and Donald simultaneously. So it's like, whoa, it's equal justice. Ooh, how they do these things. So we'll go through all of that, updates on that stuff today. We'll also have a little bit of a January 6th story. Great piece written by Julie Kelly over at American Greatness. And for a long time, we've asked ourselves, what was this whisper all about? Who was this person? Well, Ryan Samsel. We know who he is, but we didn't ever really know what Ray Epps said to him on the day of January 6th. And so today we're going to learn a little bit more about that, at least what allegedly was said during this infamous whisper from Ray Epps, who's definitely not a Fed. So we'll go through all of that. And then in our very first segment, of course, we've got to pick up with what happened yesterday. The FBI snubbing Congress, saying there are forms, not yours. What do you think you are? A branch of government? Don't you know who we are? We're the FBI here. Get the hell out of my office. So we're going to go through this. Raskin evidently lied to us. So we caught this yesterday when we were parsing through the press conference. And Comer said, no, he lied. He just came out and said something that's not accurate, specifically calling him a liar. And the House is going to be setting the record straight. Representative Anna Paulina Luna is in the House, and she's saying that the FBI also told her that they're worried that if this whistleblower is unmasked, he might be killed. And I was having flashback to the Clinton campaign, and I thought this was Biden, but I guess it's the Democrats. It doesn't really matter. We've got clips from Jim Jordan and James Comer explaining all of this, and then Kevin McCarthy weighs in as well. And so we've got a lot to get to, my friends, and this morning we had a couple other stories. If you are a member, you missed this morning, but you can join us and become a member and catch tomorrow's stories. This morning, we talked about the war on crypto and the SEC charging Coinbase with a number of different securities violations. So we went through that complaint. We also asked ourselves whether aliens are here or not. And so that was from the morning member-only session. If you missed it, You can join in and see what we talked about this morning at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, or join us on YouTube and become a member on YouTube. And I think we had a couple people invite some serious membos in the house. First of all, Suzanne E is in the house. Suzanne E, welcome to Supporter. Amazing, amazing, is joining as a member. And so you'll get access to what we recorded this morning and for our members only stream tomorrow. And Patrick Parker brought in Jerry M, Isa P, Captain F, Don D, Code Red, all in the house, courtesy of Patrick Parker. Thank you very much, Patrick Parker. Appreciate you being here. And thanks for the donos, man. You're so generous, and you were here this morning as well. I very much appreciate it. And our friend, Voice of the People, is gifting 10 new membos in the house. Amazing. Yeah, and Patrick Parker says, are you trying to show me up, Voice of the People? Oh, baby. We're getting into a membo battle over here. Yeah, Patrick, you're currently getting blasted out of the water. Voice of the People has you beat by 5 membos today. I don't write the rules, sorry. But Voice of the People brought in, and they're both on our member-only morning stream, and we're very appreciative. And so we're going to be bringing in more people into those streams. But Voice of the People brought in Rogue, Bullwinkle Sprinkles, Benjamin L, Dr. No Name, Mike M, Jay Liebgott, Nunya Bidness is in, Ross M, Mary P, and Michael M, all joining us, courtesy of Voice of the People. Very much appreciate it. And so join up, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. No matter where you remember, don't forget to grab the Telegram group. That is where the chat never ends. And before we get into all the business today, we have to say thank you to our friends over at Field of Greens for keeping us healthy and fortified and nutrified. And we all would like to be a little bit leaner, lose some of those leftover pandemic pounds. But how sick are you of all the ads for weight loss pills and fad diets and inject this, inject that? But you know what works? Eating healthy, 5 healthy servings of fruits and vegetables every day. You do that, it's easy, it's a no-brainer. The weight would probably just fall right off. But look, I know, vegetables takes a lot of time. You got to cut it and they go bad. Fruit, same story. Don't worry about it. Instead, Field of Greens, my friends. This is a science-backed formula. Very specific fruits and vegetables you won't find in any other product. And seriously, if you go look at the label, you'll see antioxidant blend, metabolic blend. You read it. It's like strawberries and raspberries and blueberries, the stuff that'll just juice you up, baby. Proper nutrition reboots your metabolism so you can burn calories faster and lose weight the healthier way. And Field of Greens is the only brand backed by a better health promise. Yes, you'll look and feel healthier fast, but the greater proof comes at your next checkup when your doctor says, wow, you've lost weight. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. And so let's get you started. Go on over to fieldofgreens.com. Save 15% off with your first purchase using code Robert when you check out. And we need to be healthy and fortified. We've got a lot of work to do to right this country. We can't do it if we're weaklings. So get nutrified and fortified with our friends Field of Greens at fieldofgreens.com. Don't forget to use code Robert. All right. Now let's get into the business of the day. Jamie Raskin lied to the American people. That's what Representative Comer said. And we had some questions about this. Remember, we're caught in the middle of this battle between the FBI and the Oversight Committee in Congress. Oversight says, hey, FBI, we know you've got this bad document that implicates the Joe Biden crime family. And it says that there was a $5 million quid pro quo between VP Joe and some other foreign actor, FBI. You have the document. Give it to us. We have jurisdiction over the FBI as Congress, and they sent a subpoena over there. Well, Christopher Wray showed up and said, well, I'm going to kind of show you the document. You can't see this. You can't touch it. You can't hold on to it. Most of it's redacted, but I am technically in compliance with the subpoena, right? Because I brought this document over to you. Wrong. And yesterday, Comer said, no, that's not how this works. You're going to be held in contempt. You leave the document right here, sir, and you take all the redactions off it. If you don't, problems. Turns out he wasn't going to do it. He snubbed him. He said, we're the FBI. How dare you talk to me like that? And then he walked right out of there with his document in hand. And James Comer was like a poor kid at a prom date. He's like, what the heck just happened to me, man? So now FBI is out of there. And after this proceeding happened, Jamie Raskin and Representative Comer, they came out and gave a press conference to us. And we spent time on this yesterday, and I was shocked because we had two totally different interpretations. Comer came out and told us that the reason the FBI was not going to hand over the document was because it was part of an ongoing and open investigation, and they can't interfere with that. And that was their justification. That was the pretext for not handing over the document. So Comer's like, well, I guess, if it's part of an ongoing investigation, we got to do something else about this. I still want to see it. He said, well, I can't give it to you. And so that was the end of it. Now, 60 seconds later, after he told us that was the basis for withholding the document, Raskin came out and sold us this other bizarre story about the investigation being closed. And Bill Barr appointed somebody, Scott Bailey, who then appointed other prosecutors, and they investigated the whole thing, and they came up with nothing. As though this investigation was closed. The FD 1023 form that we really want is irrelevant because it's already been looked at and already been exonerated. And so we're sitting here scratching our heads yesterday going, well, that's great news. Because if it's been exonerated, if it has been reviewed and they declined prosecution, and as Jamie Raskin said, Bill Barr signed off on it, somebody else named Scott signed off on it, there should be records about that. We should be able to see that. And if it really is truly totally innocent stuff of Joe Biden, why don't you just show us the documents? Let us see it, because it should be clear. And Jamie Raskin gave us this constitutional law lecture, and then he realized, oh crap, I stepped in it. James Comer just came out and told an entirely different version, and the media called him out on it. So now we're trying to get our bearing straight. Who is telling the truth? What the heck happened? And Raskin is being called a liar. James Comer came out and explained to Fox News that that is not what the briefing said.
Real quick, because we're running short on time here. You say it's an ongoing investigation. Your colleague, the ranking member on the committee, Jamie Raskin, says, oh, no, this is an old investigation. It's over. Here's what he said yesterday.
It's over, yeah.
What I know is that the FBI Department of Justice team under William Barr and Scott Brady in the Western District of Pennsylvania terminated the investigation. They said there were no grounds for further investigative steps.
Oh, great.
So they ended that.
So we've got sources in the DOJ who say that's not exactly true, that Scott Brady may have not continued with an investigation, but all of this was turned over to David Weiss in Delaware, who's heading up the Hunter Biden investigation. What do you know about this ongoing investigation?
I know Jamie Raskin walked straight out there and lied to the American people.
Oh.
The FBI said 4 times in that briefing that he and I sat in that this was part of an ongoing investigation.
You're
that
kidding.
was their primary reason for not wanting to release this document.
So you're saying he heard those words?
He heard it 4 times.
Whoa.
Not once, not twice, not 3 times, 4 times.
Because he seemed to have not. He seemed to have not heard it.
Well, that's what he said. He didn't recall. You always have to watch the words from these guys like Jamie Raskin.
Slippery
Jamie.
Jamie.
Jamie Raskin's quite honestly had to feel uncomfortable with some of the allegations in this form. And when this form eventually becomes public, you'll know what I'm talking about. So very disappointing that Raskin said that. I don't put a lot of stock in anything that Raskin or Adam Schiff says about congressional investigations.
Real quick, because we're running.
Dang! Called him a straight liar. He heard it 4 times. He was in the same briefing. And yeah, we know Jamie Raskin has cancer. But he acted like he was cognizant and mentally acute. So was he directly lying to us? And as we said, I don't know what else he was thinking, because he didn't give us another reason for why the document was being withheld. He didn't say, well, you know, the investigation was over, but it's still classified, because it's not. Or it's still from a confidential human source. Okay, that's true, but we have the human source who wants the document out. So protecting what? Sources and methods? For what? A closed investigation, Jamie? No. So the FBI, the only thing that they can do is say it's part of an ongoing investigation. They're like, well, what investigation? Like, I don't know. Did we make one up somewhere at some point in time? I don't know. Shove it in the Hunter Biden case. Perfect. Put it in the Manila folder. Just put it on this one and put it over here, and nobody ever knows. Did you see anything? No, I didn't see anything either. So Raskin lied to the American people, and he didn't mince words about that. One more time, this is Comer with a conclusion.
Brady may have not continued with an investigation, but all of this was turned over to David Weiss in Delaware, who's heading up the Hunter Biden investigation. What do you know about this ongoing investigation?
I know Jamie Raskin walked straight out there and lied to the American people.
Damn.
The FBI said 4 times
You're a liar, bro.
in that briefing that he and I sat in that this was part of an ongoing investigation. That was their primary reason for not wanting to release this document.
So you're saying he heard those words?
He heard it 4 times, not once, not twice, not 3 times, 4 times.
Because he seemed to have not. He seemed to have not heard it.
Well, that's what he said. He didn't recall. You always have to watch the words from these guys like Jamie Raskin. You know, Jamie Raskin's quite.
You do have to watch the words, and you know, let's go back. Since we're here, let's rewind the clock. We have the show from yesterday, and we're just going to navigate over to that. We're just going to watch that one little clip again, and see specifically what slippery Jamie Raskin had to say about all this.
Articulable facts giving rise to suspicion of criminal activity.
Yeah.
So they apparently decided that there was not, and they called an end to the investigation.
And it's
now
over.
recall that this is under Attorney General William Barr and his hand-picked prosecutor, Mr. Brady, who was a Trump appointee. They were the ones who decided that there was no grounds further based on what this confidential human source reported from a conversation with another person. They decided that there was no grounds to escalate this up the investigative prosecutorial chain.
Questions for you.
So if there's a complaint, the complaint is with Attorney General William Barr, the Trump Justice Department, and the team that the Trump administration appointed to look into it. But I'm just surprised that my colleagues want to try to litigate this in public, much less hold the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation in contempt for complying with their request when there was a
He didn't comply. He brought the document and went home with it.
whole process that was undertaken, and that process came to its natural end.
All right, so the media busts him on this big time.
There was no criminal charges. Scott about here is a confidential human source reporting a conversation with someone else. So we're talking about is secondhand hearsay.
Media busting right here.
And they did whatever
now watch him collapse.
Investigative due diligence was called for in that assessment period, and they found no reason to escalate it from an assessment to a so-called preliminary investigation.
Yeah, look at this. Listen to this.
That comes a full-blown
It's a nice story.
Yes.
So now he gets totally busted right here. This is where he gets caught in the lie. This is what Comer was referencing.
And then I'll come to you.
Thank you very much. So, from what you're saying, is Chairman Comer not telling the truth and that there's an ongoing...
Is Comer not telling the truth?
...to this allegation that then Vice President Biden took a bribe from a foreign official?
Wait, say...
What?
It was an ongoing
You said it was an ongoing investigation, that they're still investigating.
Okay, but
Busted.
I'm not privy to what the chairman had to say. There has certainly been
No, but you were in the room. Hello. Did you hear that 4 times or not?
published reports that there is an ongoing investigation in Delaware by the U.S. Attorney, I believe related to Hunter Biden.
Yeah. So maybe that's the one. Did you not put 2 and 2 together there?
That's all that I know.
any indication that this document that you guys were briefed on today is part of an ongoing investigation?
So she asked more specifically, and this was great, did the FBI tell you today anything that this was an ongoing investigation in any way?
What I know is that the FBI Department of Justice team under William Barr and Scott Brady
He wasn't
in the
even
Western
listening.
District of Pennsylvania
Probably
terminated
asleep.
the investigation. They said there were no grounds
Plain
for
as fuck.
further investigative steps, so they ended
Jeremy
that.
Comer, ooh.
Now, in terms of another investigation, I can't speak to that. I have
That's
seen
not
nothing
what they're
about
asking.
that, and other than published reports. So,
Like all the questions.
This document in particular, is it part of an ongoing investigation?
Is this document part of an ongoing investigation?
okay, but then I must have missed that because I've not heard that this is part of any ongoing investigation.
No.
So,
No, I've never heard of it. No. Ongoing what? Comer says he heard it 4 times. And that's him. No, never heard of it. What are you talking about?
but then I must have missed that because I've not heard that this is part of any ongoing investigation. What is the allegation? So,
Absolutely nuts. So apparently he was just in an entirely different press briefing. He was doing something not that he was not paying attention to. So Raskin lying through his teeth, according to Representative Comer. And they came out to set the record straight on this. The Oversight Committee posted this. They said, it's time to debunk Democrat information. Unsurprisingly, liars like Adam Schiff and Jamie Raskin, Democrats are spreading disinformation about yesterday's FBI briefing on the Biden bribery record. We're going to set the record straight. Says, here's the claim. Democrats allege that the FD 1023 record is based on secondhand hearsay, just like we heard from Raskin. But here's the fact. The record memorializes a credible, confidential human sources conversations, the firsthand conversations, with a foreign national who claimed to have bribed Biden, right? So this guy says, I spoke to somebody who was literally involved in the crime. He told me this. This is a credible person. They say this informant has worked for the FBI for 10 plus years. So it's not this he said, she said game. It's the dude, the whistleblower who submitted the report, actually talked to the counterpart who was involved in the crime. The guy who claimed to have bribed Biden is who the whistleblower spoke to. So the only other person who was involved in this is Joe, apparently, or Hunter, or his bagman, his brother. We don't know. But it's not multiple layers removed. He literally talked with the guy who put the order in for the $5 million policy change. Here's another claim. Democrats say that the DOJ investigated the FD 1023 and took no action, as we just heard from Raskin. Here's the fact. The DOJ conducted, quote, an assessment on separate material provided to the DOJ in January 2020. The FD 1023 was generated by the FBI on 6/30/2020 based on another FBI record from 2017. Now, this is interesting. So we have to ask ourselves, when did the FBI ultimately know about this? And Joe Biden was the vice president up until 2017 when Trump took over. So the FBI had a record, and then something else happened internally. We don't really know what happened or why the what triggered the FD 1023 form to be generated. Was there new information? Did the whistleblower come back up? Or did something trigger what may have been a dormant record from 2017 up to 2020? However, right, I mean, just think of the timing on this. So this whistleblower comes out. This document needs to come to the forefront in 2020, which is election year. This happens in June. And the FBI wants to sit on this thing and bury it. That'd be devastating if a $5 million quid pro quo allegation came out from a 10-plus year FBI informant. Wouldn't that be a problem for Biden's? Yeah. So, well, better put that in the closet next to the Hunter file. You know what I'm saying? We all know the Hunter file. It's big. That's why we need a closet. The assessment was closed out in August 2020, this assessment. The FBI refused to answer what information was part of their so-called assessment in August. If the 6/30, the June FD 1023 form was included in the, quote, assessment, how could the DOJ have conducted a credible, thorough investigation in just 4 weeks? Curious. Very questionable. Well, it's because it's Joe Biden, and they did not want Donald Trump to win. They were part of the same intelligence apparatus just next door to the CIA. And the CIA was twisting themselves into knots to make sure Donald Trump did not get elected, including by having Mike Morrell lead the effort to collude with Anthony Blinken to sign a letter to give Joe Biden talking points so he could dismiss the Hunter Biden laptop story as Russian disinformation. So do you think the FBI is going through a more rigorous process? I mean, the CIA was openly working for him. I mean, not officially the government, but come on, let's be real. All of these retired CIA ex-feds, as though they're not at the same cocktail parties and out there doing the business of the bureau of the agency for all of America to see. Give me a break. So how could they do it in 4 weeks? Well, easy. It's the FBI. This is the wrong type of defendant. They're looking for, at this point in time, Whitmer plotters that were created by the FBI. They're not focused on Hunter, that would be devastating to Joe's case. Here, Democrats, another allegation. They allege that the FD 1023 has been closed. Here's the fact from the Oversight Committee. The FBI confirmed multiple times that the information contained within the FD 1023 is being used in an ongoing investigation. As Comer said clearly, Democrats claim that the FD 1023 is part of the documents that Rudy Giuliani gave to the FBI in January. Not true. The fact is, the June 30th FD 1023 form stands on its own, contains other information from the FBI's confidential human source dating back to another FD 1023 generated in 2017. Now we see the chain. We were a little bit confused about that up here. Why was the FD 1023 generated on another FBI record? There it is. It's because it contains information from the source that references back to another 1023. Source drops some information with the FBI. The FBI doesn't act on FD 1023 2017. That file sits around. CHS comes back and says, I've got more information. Remember when I was here in 2017 to supplement that? You're not going to believe it. This is what now I've got now. Turns out Joe Biden actually was the person behind that thing. He was the VP. So I'm supplementing that. It's election year, June 2020. I've got new information for you. It references back an old thing that you were already looking at from right after Joe Biden left the office and Trump came in. And it relates back. That's why we are asking about it. So the claim is that it's part of these Giuliani documents. Fact is not true. 2 FD 1023s, one likely incomplete, not actionable, and layered on, referenced by the 2020 1023 relating back to the earlier document because it provides new value. They say that the disinformation from the left reinforces that the FBI needs to produce this unclassified FD 1023 record to the Oversight Committee saying Americans demand answers, transparency, and accountability. And that is the Oversight Committee setting the record straight. Now, apparently, it was a pretty interesting meeting yesterday. Representative Anna Paula Luna, she said that after the meeting, while Jamie Raskin was asleep, playing games on his phone, Luna said this, hey, we just left the meeting for the House Oversight Committee. The FBI is afraid their informant will be killed if unmasked. Based on the info he has brought forward about the Biden family. So that doesn't sound good at all. Wonder if Jamie Raskin heard that one. Guessing not. So Jim Jordan and James Comer, they were making the airwaves talking about exactly what happened at this hearing. And so let's get caught up on that and see what they have to say.
In contempt of Congress, here with more, Chairman Jim Jordan. Let's talk a little bit. He showed you the Doc 20, correct?
Right. This particular document was dated in 2020, but there are notes in the document that date back to 2017. We believe that this human source initially informed the FBI of the bribery scheme back in 2017. So my question to the FBI was, what exactly have you done with this accusation? Because the FBI admitted that this is a highly credible, in fact, one of their most highly credible human sources. They admitted that they had paid this source a substantial amount of money, and he had been a part of the Bureau for 13 years dating back to the Obama administration. And their answer to me, Sean, was, well, it's now a part of an ongoing investigation. We don't know which investigation. We don't know when the investigation began. All we know is 2 weeks ago, they tried to act like this form didn't exist. And here we are today with the FBI bringing the form to the House of Representatives.
But not leaving it there.
James Comer, let's talk about where your committee is ultimately headed with your investigation. And and let's assume that you hold Director Wray in contempt. What does that mean as of Thursday?
Well, we're setting an example. When we subpoena information, there's a reason why, and we expect to get that information. The House Oversight Committee was created to have oversight over the federal government. And what Ted Cruz mentioned earlier and Jim Jordan talks about all the time is we have these federal bureaucracies that think they're immune to oversight. So we're following the money, Sean. I said this in December when we announced the investigation. We were going to follow the money. And obviously what we demonstrated a few weeks ago when we showed proof that there were many wire transfers from a Romanian national to the Biden family, to shell companies that the Biden family created that were then dispersed back down to various Biden family members. These payments were made while Joe Biden was vice president. These payments were made soon after, just days after he flew out of Romania on Air Force Two.
What a graft.
What the whistleblower, or what the human informant alleged in the FBI form is exactly the same as what we saw in Romania. The vice president at the time, Joe Biden, was in the country. He was talking about foreign policy. And then soon afterwards, according to this highly credible, well-respected human source, then there was a bribe made. And it specifically detailed allegations that the bribe would be made in a way that would be very difficult to find, that they would use various bank accounts and various shell companies.
Well, I agree with that. Jim Jordan, thank you. James Comer, thank you.
All right, so some interesting reporting there from Comer. Nothing surprising there, but the Democrats are trying to obfuscate, and Comer is trying to deliver the truth. So we're going to be back. Obviously, we'll see what happens on Thursday. They're going to be moving forward with contempt hearings, and we'll be looking forward to that. But will this have the backing of Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House? Here's what he said.
Tell me about this deal with Chris Wray at the FBI. Is he going to be held in contempt?
He will be held in contempt if he doesn't do what is responsible to do. Remember, in the Commitment to America, Republicans said we'd go and make sure we had accountability and transparency. We had a whistleblower come before us and say that he'd gone to the FBI about hearing of a $5 million bribe from a foreign individual to then Vice President Biden, and then talked about sending money to LLCs and others. We subpoenaed that because, remember, Congress has the constitutional right of the oversight of the FBI. This document is not even classified. What is the first thing that Director Wray said? He didn't even acknowledge whether he had it. He said he wouldn't provide it. I had a phone call with him, explained to him, if he does not provide this, we will hold him in contempt. Now he said, yes, we do have the document, but he'll only show it to the chairman and ranking member. That is not how the Constitution works. Everybody on the Committee of Oversight, Republican and Democrats, have a right to see this unclassified document. If he doesn't come forth and allow everyone to see it, we will move contempt charges against him on Thursday. Secretary Blinken had the same problem when he would not give the documents about what happened in Afghanistan. He now realizes, yes, he should supply it to everybody on the committee. Congress has the constitutional right to oversee and to hold this government accountable. We are loaned the voice of the people, and we have a right to see it and look. The FBI now says there's an ongoing investigation. I wonder why there was an investigation before.
Yeah, that's
They
interesting
also
news.
said they need to protect the individual. We understand that. I see documents that way all the time. Redact whatever you need to protect the individual, but show us the document and everybody on oversight.
It is interesting, Speaker, that there was an allegation about these kind of shenanigans with cash and policy while Joe Biden was vice president, and then Comer subpoenas bank records, and the bank records reflect money coming in from overseas disguised through LLCs, and the FBI is saying they only want to show it to two people. Why only two people? Number one. Number two, what will this contempt process look like on Thursday?
Well, the contempt process would first go through the committee and then to the floor the next week. But this is what's interesting. Remember when this document came to the FBI, or this informant, a number of years ago? What happened? Did anything happen during that time? And what they accused this vice president, what they said they heard, was a foreign entity would supply money to an LLC that would send more money to an LLC that would get to the president, the vice president, based upon actions he would take place. No one heard or saw this. And then when this committee started taking action this year, what did we find out? We found that there were banks that actually the Bidens were getting money from an LLC, from a foreign dignitary, sending the money. And you know what? This business the Bidens have, they don't own any real estate.
That's interesting. A foreign dignitary. That's a new phrase that I don't think we've heard yet. There were a lot of talks that this was a foreign national, but I was thinking maybe this was a business interest or something that Hunter facilitated. I didn't know that it was official policy decisions.
They don't make anything. They don't manufacture anything. But a lot of people in the Biden family get money down to grandchildren, down to in-laws, but they don't work there. Isn't that a little awkward or odd? Doesn't that raise the prospect that maybe you should look at this further?
Yeah.
And so,
unless you're protecting them,
Christopher Wray does not want his legacy tarnished with a contempt of Congress charge. I imagine there's a legacy factor into his decision.
I don't know.
There should be.
They'll probably promote him. They'll probably make him, I don't know, vice president.
Seems as though when he first would not even acknowledge the document, when I said I would move contempt, he then acknowledged the document and supplied it to 2 people. But that does not meet the criteria. Every single person on the Oversight Committee, they have a responsibility, not just 2 people, Republicans and Democrats. All of them have a right to see it. That is their job. That is the role of that committee. And we have constitutional authority over the FBI. They don't get to tell us yes or no about this process. So if he will not follow through on his job, being the lawmaker or the individual, the top cop in society, he should have to follow through on the responsibilities that he has.
Imagine the FBI director following through with his duties and responsibilities.
Following the law. Give me a freaking break. That's a hilarious thing. Yeah, they're really, really concerned about that. Unless you are an enemy, then they'll just create charges against you. So Congress is going to be moving forward, it sounds like, I would say, just based on their talk, aggressively. Now, they talk aggressively all the time. We talk a lot about that here. A lot of talk all the time. But now we're getting to the point where they're very well maybe the FBI Director of the United States of America held in contempt of Congress for covering up for the President of the United States of America in a quid pro quo scheme involving a foreign dignitary to the tune of $5 million for policy changes. Woo! So things are about to get spicy. And of course, we're going to continue to cover it. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for liking this video. And we'll see you on the next release. All right, my friends. Now, let's turn our attention over to what is going on. What is the FBI and the DOJ doing? While they're not giving us FD 1023 forms, we are now seeing some new activity. Special Counsel Jack Smith emerges. We see him in public, walking around, presumably getting ready for a big day. Now, we've been speculating here for some time. What does that mean? Is Trump going to be indicted at the federal level? Probably. I really have a hard time believing that they're going through all of this for nothing, that they're puffing this up, saying that Trump created an insurrection, the worst thing since the Civil War, and on and on and on to just let this thing peter out, right? So Jack Smith is now out. We learned yesterday Trump's team met with him, and Congress is starting to get involved in this a little bit. Jim Jordan sent 2 letters over to the DOJ demanding to know about the scope and the scale of this investigation. And of course, we've got reaction to all of this. What does Bill Barr think? What does Ted Cruz think? What does that guy George Conway think about this prosecution as it develops? But we see Jack Smith walking around now. MSNBC was there. They're salivating over this. It's Jack Smith. Oh, here he is.
Hey there, Mr. Smith. How are you doing? Gary Grumback from NBC News here. Is an indictment coming soon, sir? Is an investigation wrapping up, sir?
Weren't able to see too much of him until recently.
Oh, And
He's
do you
taking
like
the
to say,
long
Mr.
walks
Smith?
now. Used to use the underground parking, now he's taking the walks.
NBC's Ken Delaney is back with us. Ken, he had absolutely nothing to say, which is what you would expect.
Yeah.
Well, I might have expected him to politely decline to comment. I think he was taken aback because not a lot of people know where Jack Smith's office actually is. Jose, it's in a place in Washington, D.C. that is not at the Justice Department, and our intrepid colleague, Gary Grumbach, tracked him down there.
Oh, maybe that's why we haven't seen much of him. He got outed by NBC. They're very excited to see him and ask him questions. What is coming up soon? And so Jim Jordan has sent in a couple letters over to the DOJ demanding to know more about this. Here is one of them. This one was drafted on, well, those are both the same letter. Let me make sure I've got the other one queued up here. And, oh, I think they're the same date, just different. No, that's the same one. All right, give me 1 second. We're going to do this. I think I saved the same letter as 2 different file names, you know? What a doofus. Right in the middle of a live show, you know? Silly goose. All right, so that is, let's do the Judiciary Committee. Yeah, I saved 2 separate files. I saved separate names, but they're the same file, you know? So that didn't work out that well. But that's okay. We have the other one right here, and it's queued up. And so we're back in business with the right files. Letter drafted to the Honorable Merrick Garland, over from the DOJ. Drafted June 1st, 2023, coming out of the office of Jim Jordan, Chairman of the Judiciary Committee from the United States House of Representatives. He says, hey, Merrick Garland, on May 12th, Special Counsel John Durham released a report detailing the FBI's failings in opening and conducting an investigation, codenamed Crossfire Hurricane, into the debunked allegations of collusion between Trump's presidential campaign and the Russian government. Now, the extent of the FBI's bias and reckless disregard for the truth, which Special Counsel John Durham laid out in painstaking detail, is nothing short of scandalous. The FBI has tried to dismiss the report's findings by claiming to have, quote, already implemented dozens of corrective actions to prevent similar misconduct in the future. But the FBI's window dressing is not enough, says Jim. The special counsel's report serves as a stark reminder of the need for more accountability and reforms within the FBI, and accordingly, as Congress conducts oversight to inform these legislative reforms, we write to ensure that the Justice Department act to preserve the integrity and the impartiality of ongoing investigations from the FBI's politicized bureaucracy. So he wants to know, this is about the 2016 election, and the next one's going to be more about this current prosecution, but both are towards the DOJ and the FBI. He says the special counsel's report details how the FBI abused its law enforcement authorities to achieve its political ends. That is, to hamstring the campaign and the presidency of Trump. While we trust you're familiar with the report's findings, it's worth highlighting some of the most troubling conclusions. The FBI did not possess any actual evidence of collusion before deciding to launch Crossfire Hurricane. FBI appears to have disregarded this issue largely due to the personal and political biases against Donald Trump harbored by FBI personnel involved in the investigation. The FBI failed to apply basic investigative techniques, appropriately assess the credibility, adequately consider exculpatory evidence, or anything else during the investigation. Different standards of justice, one for Trump, one for Hillary. They rapidly opened an investigation into Trump based on raw, uncorroborated information. The FBI also disregarded highly significant intelligence it got from a trusted foreign source that the purported collusion at the heart of the hurricane investigation was a ploy by Clinton to divert this away from Hillary's email scandals. So, public trust, he says, in the FBI is low. Jordan says recent examples of political bias in the FBI and the DOJ operations show that the so-called corrective measures the FBI instituted after Crossfire Hurricane have nothing and done nothing to address, let alone cure, the institutional rot that pervades the FBI. It is clear that Congress must consider legislative reforms to the FBI or defund them, and the committee has been engaged in robust oversight to inform these proposals. In the interim, however, due to the FBI's documented political bias, the Justice Department must ensure any ongoing investigations are not poisoned by this same politicization. We therefore request that you provide the following information, Mayor. 1. Provide information about the use of FBI personnel by, here we go, fast forward to today, Special Counsel Jack Smith. How many FBI people are you using on this case? The total number of FBI employees assigned to work on this investigation. How many? Jack. How many FBI employees from FBI headquarters are prosecuting Trump? How many? You're using your own government to prosecute your political enemies, even though the FBI has a history of being anti-Trump. And Jim wants to know the number of the FBI employees from Washington also working on the investigation. How many different FBI agents? Probably a lot. Also wants an explanation as to whether any FBI employees who have worked on Smith's investigation previously worked on any other matters concerning Trump. Are these career anti-Trumpers? And explain whether Smith's investigation relies on any material that was gathered exclusively by the FBI prior to special counsel's appointment. In other words, did the FBI just drop a big fat dossier on Jack Smith's desk like, whoa, and just say, here you go. Go wild, Jack. We couldn't get him on any of this stuff, but go crazy. We also ask that you arrange a briefing by Lisa Monaco, who many people say really actually runs the DOJ, about any matters related to Durham, including remedial measures the department has implemented, if any. The committee is authorized to conduct oversight of the DOJ. Please provide a response. If you have any questions, please call us. Thanks for your attention. We'll see. Sincerely, your friend, Jim Jordan, chairman of the Judiciary Committee. Over to Jack Smith. So, what is the scope? What is the scale of this? How many people are working on this? How many FBI employees? Maybe they have undercover informants. Who knows what's going on? But they want some details. And my guess is the DOJ is going to say, well, we can't tell you any of that. This is an ongoing investigation. They love that line. So Jim Jordan sent another letter over. This one came out June 6th, also from the Judiciary Committee. And now this one also goes to Merrick Garland. He says, Mayor, gosh, I'm sick of writing you, man, but the Committee on the Judiciary is continuing to investigate the FBI's unprecedented raid of Trump's residence at Mar-a-Lago on August 8th. We previously requested information and documents related to the FBI raid. But because you have not provided this information, and in light of your appointment of Jack Smith as special counsel, we now write to request an unredacted copy of the memo outlining the scope of Mr. Smith's probes regarding President Trump and any supporting documentation related to his appointment as special counsel. Now, this is something that we saw previously, and I was curious about how far this would go. So remember that the special counsel had an appointment memo that we read through here some time ago, and we were saying, okay, well, what's he going to investigate? Like, can the special counsel go and investigate election financial crimes? No, that's clearly outside the scope of what he has been permitted to do. He can't just go and find anything he wants about Trump, like just get Trump for anything. He's got some limited rules that he has to follow. And we were asking ourselves when we read through it about the scope and about the bounds. Are there any upper, lower, outer limits for this investigation? What do they look like? And as we've been seeing this investigation materialize, one thing that they are getting into now is a lot of the election 2020 stuff, not January 6th, but election stuff, and what Trump was doing to do something with the election. not the aftermath of the election, right? Which is a different thing. And January 6th has tentacles that you can really follow far back, all the way back. And so you can take it to pre-election activities. And we've seen some murmurings that that is happening. So what's Congress doing is they're saying, I want to know what that circle is. Where are you cut off? What's inbounds? What's out of bounds? Let us know. Accordingly, please provide the committee with an unredacted copy of the memo outlining the investigation pursuant to his appointment, any other documents listing the authority no later than June 20th. We've got the authority to investigate you, to oversee and to see the DOJ and the FBI. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Sincerely, your friend, Jim Jordan. So we do want to know a lot more about this, and things get slippery. What if he steps outside of bounds a little bit? What happens if he finds something that's technically not within his purview? Can he use that? We're going to have fights over that, and defense attorneys would say, no, that's outside of the bounds. Now, there's apparently a second grand jury that is being convened in Florida. D.C. has its own separate case because of stuff that originates from D.C., but remember, the classified documents were found at Mar-a-Lago. And so there's a grand jury that's being convened in Florida to determine whether charges can move forward out of a Florida district court. A federal grand jury will meet this week in Florida, which will be a second one, to hear new evidence from Jack Smith. Not clear how the court proceedings relate to the work. Prosecutors have already been presenting evidence in Washington for months. Why prosecutors are using multiple grand juries and whether they're ready to seek an indictment in either jurisdiction is unknown. Justice Department declined to comment on the investigation. So, don't know much about what's going on in Florida. All this stuff is kept in secret. But we've got reaction from people, including George Conway, a rabid anti-Trumper, somebody who I think may have gotten divorced because of Trump or something. I mean, really, on one when it comes to Trump. But here's what he said about this new looming indictment.
What does it signal to you that Trump's three attorneys were at DOJ headquarters yesterday about where we are in this process?
Well, we're approaching the very end. I mean, I kept hearing this earworm in my head as I was coming to the studio this morning. This is it. Make no mistake. I mean, we're getting down to the final strokes of this race. And
they are getting down to their final strokes. There's no doubt.
What's really remarkable about is that of all the things that this man has done in 8 decades of lying and cheating and stealing, this case, this documents case, is probably the easiest, shortest, simplest, and yet carries the most severe penalties of likely penalties of any of the cases that he has any of the legal issues that he's ever faced. Now, people would say, he really, in a just world, he would go to jail for what he did on January 6th and the weeks approaching January 6th. And I kind of agree with that. But for this man who is basically a nihilistic moron, for him to go to jail potentially for a long time. I mean, these Espionage Act charges bring very heavy sentences. Potentially go to jail for something so stupid and pointless and silly and useless as
it is stupid and silly and useless, right? It's not that big of a deal, but they're prosecuting him because it's a political enemy. Don't you see the contradiction there, George? It is stupid and useless. And you may hate the guy. You might say he's got all these other things. He's a, pervert or whatever, whatever they call him, an abuser or whatever. And you might say those things, but they're getting him on a technical documents thing that feels like it is created in many senses because of how they allowed the process to unfold.
As keeping these documents is actually kind of fitting.
It's actually kind of fitting. So these people are just, giddy as can be that this is now coming down to the line. And we've got other reaction. Of course, we know Bill Barr, former Attorney General in the Trump administration. He was reacting and walking through some of his thoughts about what will be happening with Donald Trump and the Trump prosecution as soon as this video loads. It's probably a little bit of a bigger video, which is why it's taking a quick minute. But if we don't have it there, We have it. Maybe here. Let's see. All right, we're going to try to play that differently. We're going to move forward on to Ted Cruz.
CBS News has confirmed that lawyers for former President Trump had a meeting yesterday at the Justice Department as he faces possible charges on multiple issues being investigated by a special counsel. For insight into this and much more, we're joined by Bill Barr, who served as Attorney General in the Trump administration. Since then, he has criticized the former president on a number of fronts. He's also the author of, I love this title, One Damn Thing After Another, Memoirs of an Attorney General, which is out in paperback today, wherever you like to buy your books. We're happy to say that Bill Barr joins us at the table this morning.
What's up,
Bill?
See
you.
Good to see you, Gail.
Bill Barr. Listen, I know from reading your book you play a mean bagpipe, but I'm understanding you're not going to be serenading us today.
Not today, no.
Yeah, our loss. But let's talk about the meeting yesterday
Bagpipes are cool.
that the Trump
They're
attorneys had with the special counsel. What does it say to you? What is the significance? Because you know how this game is played. You know this record. You know this song. What did it say to you?
I think that meeting was probably held to complain about some aspects of the special counsel's work.
Wow.
Because generally the special counsel is generally independent and can make up their own mind. And I think they probably went to Main Justice, which is where this meeting was held, to complain, to claim that the special counsel hasn't been following the rules.
But does it say to you that an indictment is near? Do you believe that?
I suspect it's near. I've said for a while that I think this is the most dangerous legal risk facing the former president. And if I had to bet, I would bet that it's near.
You believe there is enough evidence?
Well, they won't indict if there's not enough evidence, but from what I've seen, there's substantial evidence.
Yeah, they can just...
And if there is a federal indictment, Bill, do you think that that hurts him politically? You know, it seems that whenever he's indicted or he's under scrutiny, his numbers go up, the support goes up, the donations go up. Do you think a federal indictment will make a difference? And I know it won't for his core base.
So in the immediate future, it might, but I think based on the facts, as the facts come out, I think over time people will see that this is not a case of the Department of Justice, conducting a witch hunt. In fact, they approached this very delicately and with deference to the president, and this would have gone nowhere had the president just returned the documents.
Yeah, but that's the point, Bill. He doesn't think that he has to do that. Okay, Bill Barr says it like it is, and he's, I think, more of an institutionalist more than he is a partisan. I think that he cares more about the DOJ than he cares about either side as an institution. He's a lifetime DOJer. And so Donald Trump should also bend the knee to the DOJ. Okay, everybody bends the knee to the institutions that are in charge. And so if Trump's an ex-president, and he says, hey, I declassified, these are presidential records, you don't have any entitlement to them. I'm the former president. I had the power to do all that stuff. Bill Barr still says, well, no, NARA, the National Archives, she said that those things come back here and they come over here, and you got to do it this way. And we know that the FBI and the DOJ, they don't come in good faith, Bill. They don't act like they are interested in pursuing justice. He says here that the DOJ and the FBI and NARA, they've all been very delicate and they've all been above board here. And he's never going to trash the institutions because he's an institutionalist. He's been there his whole life, literally. So he has to defend the institutions. He's never, ever going to come out and say the DOJ is a corrupt institution that has a vendetta against Donald Trump. It will never happen. And the same thing goes with the FBI, because there are the institutions that he has been endorsing and standing behind his entire life. But we on this channel, we've spent hours, hundreds at this point, talking about all of the corruption out of the DOJ and out of the FBI. So even though Bill Barr comes out here and talks with a lot of authority, like they've done a great job here, we have chronicled that that is not true.
But he jerked them around for a year and a half. And the question is, did he deceive them? And if there's evidence of that...
He jerked them around. He's saying that he's entitled to do that. He's making his claim that he's entitled to do those things, Bill.
I think people will start to see that this says more about Trump than it does the Department of Justice. And that is that he's so egotistical that he has this penchant for conducting, risky, reckless acts.
Now that I agree with, that he does push the line, right? He really does push this envelope. and he does things that a lot of other people wouldn't do. And that doesn't necessarily make it illegal in this country. We talked all about this with the election. You're allowed to question. I mean, even now on YouTube, you're allowed to question elections. Is that not free speech? Is that not democracy? We can have a country where we can challenge everything in the world except our elections. Okay. Donald Trump made an argument, and when we even covered the election and about Mike Pence's authority and what can happen under the Constitution and the counting of the electoral ballots and all the things, we came to the conclusion that I didn't even think that Mike Pence had the authority to do what happened, what many were claiming, but that doesn't mean that Trump has an inability to make the argument. He can still make the argument. You can disagree with it. You can bring many election litigation cases in the court of law. That is the whole point of our system. It's called an adversarial system. We challenge things all the time. And only in certain instances do FBI agents raid former presidents or raid anybody. They do it because they've got a vendetta. They're not fair and impartial and neutral. They're not coming in good faith, Bill.
Show that he can sort of get away with it. It's part of asserting his ego, and he's done this.
It's not his ego. It's pushing back against the entire corrupt institution, Bill. Not everybody just comes in and bends the knee to the government.
Repeatedly at the expense of all the people who depend on him to conduct the public's business in an honorable way. And, we saw that with both impeachments, and there's no excuse for what he did here. Whether it's a crime or not remains to be seen.
Do you think he deceived them? You know this man very well. Do you think?
I think the government believes that.
I didn't ask the government. I said, do you think?
I don't know. I don't know the evidence in that kind of detail.
Mm-hmm. But you also said he didn't act in an honorable way. Everybody who knows you says that you are an honorable man. They may disagree with some of the things you say or some of the things you do, but they say the core of Bill Barr is he's an honorable man. And I guess I wonder why you worked with him for so long, seeing the things that you saw up close and personal, why you stayed as long as you did.
Well, I went into the administration halfway through, and I did it at a time where I felt he was being treated unfairly on the Russiagate thing. I thought that was and turned out to be, I think, a big lie.
It was, Bill. Yeah. And you know who indulged all of that crap? The same people who are indulging this crap. That's the point. He was besmirched and unfairly prosecuted. This is another iteration of that. Just because you happen to disagree with this one, or maybe this one's more politically opportune for you, or you've decided to change gears and pick a different racehorse, or whatever the case is, or maybe you just got to sell more books, and CBS is a great place to do it. But it's the same institutions doing the same things, Bill.
And I felt that he was the duly elected president, and he deserved the chance to conduct his administration. And I went in because I thought I could help stabilize things.
There you go. That's the reason. He went in because he wanted Trump to not wreck the DOJ and the FBI. The institutions that he really cared about, that he thinks are more important than anything in the world, they've got to be protected. And who can do that? Only Bill Barr, because Donald Trump is a bull in a china shop, and he has to get him out of the store.
Have the administration conducted in an appropriate way. Mm-hmm. And as I felt the idea that the election was stolen was a big lie, and I wasn't going to play a part in that.
You called him on that, yeah.
Well, Mr. Attorney General, the former President Trump is still the odds-on leader of the party and the likely winner of the primary if it were to be held today in all 50 states. But you don't think he's going to win the nomination. I know you still hold that view. Who do you like as an alternative? Is it Ron DeSantis? Is it the governor of Virginia? Is it the governor of North Dakota? If you're a Republican voter right now, you've got a lot of strong choices out there.
Yeah, I like most of the people running. I think they're great. And what they show, and people who are locked into Trump have to start focusing on the facts. And the facts are that we have Republican leaders who can follow conservative policies and expand the vote and win crushing victories like DeSantis did, like Governor Kemp in Georgia, like Governor Youngkin, who's very popular in Virginia, following conservative policies.
Yeah.
Trump is almost unique in his inability to attract voters. He repels people other than his core base.
And he's got a strong psychological...
Trump's the only one. I like everybody except Trump. He's the worst one ever. And so these people, I think, are just... They can't wait for Trump to be prosecuted, and they're on team deep state, really, against anybody who could challenge it or threaten it. And the DOJ, the FBI, they're part of those institutions. And so Bill Barr protects them at all costs. Now, Ted Cruz also weighed in on this. He has an interesting theory. He says that we might get a 2-for-1. He says, I believe that Merrick Garland will indict Hunter Biden and Donald Trump. This is to show the illusion of equal justice. See, we're prosecuting Trump. We're going to try to throw him in prison for 100 years so he can never run again or take over this country. And we're going to give Hunty Poo a little bit of a tax charge, maybe a little bit of a gun charge. We'll put him on probation for 24 months, and we'll make him repay some fines and do 900 hours of community service where he'll be out there at schools, and he'll enjoy that a lot. Maybe dad will join him. So it'll be two different tiers, but they'll be able to come out and sell it as though this is neutral DOJ, even though we know that's not true. He says the DOJ will indict Hunter Biden on personal issues like drug charges or tax problems, exactly. And this is to cover up and insulate Joe Biden and his family's corruption. It's a red herring. It's a shiny object. It's look over here. Hunter's getting prosecuted. Oh my gosh. We don't care about his drug crimes. Nobody cares about his gun charges. We care about him being the bag man for the vice president. Him selling out this country's interests for his own personal gain. That's what we care about. But they'll shiny object this thing. They'll try to pigeonhole it so we never hear about it. Here's Ted Cruz.
Because this, I don't think Merrick Garland will indict Trump over classified documents. Here's my prediction. He'll indict Trump over, quote, obstruction of justice for hiding the classified documents. Now, mind you,
that sounds reasonable.
He's not saying
that sounds reasonable because he's got to make a distinction between Joe and between Pence and anybody else who's had classified document problems. I'm sure there's a lot more of them. So the distinguishment, the feature as to why Pence does not get prosecuted, but Trump does, is obstruction. Same cases. The only thing that disambiguates them is the obstruction. And they get that obstruction with the intentionality by Trump holding the document, reading the document, saying he knows everything about it.
Underlying classified documents were a crime because he'd have to indict Joe Biden too. He's going to instead create a crime about a non-crime. That's going to be the basis of the indictment. And I think you're right. He will also indict Hunter Biden, but he'll do it on purely personal matters, dealing with drugs and guns and tax issues for Hunter that have nothing to do with Joe Biden, because this DOJ wants to protect and insulate Joe Biden and the Biden family's corruption, and they want to use Hunter Biden as a scapegoat to justify targeting Donald Trump.
And it's a nice way to just change the story and say, no, it's been very impartial, and you'll see a lot of that in the media. They'll lap it up as they play cover for their political team. The Trump prosecution heating up. Of course, we're going to continue to cover this, and we appreciate you joining us. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking this video. Thank you for sharing this with a friend. Just say, what are you watching out there? Come check this channel out, because the Trump prosecution is going to continue, and it might get hot very, very soon, and we look forward to seeing you as we cover it. All right, my friends, and we have one last segment. This was a great piece from our friend Julie Kelly. And what she has for us is an answer. The Ray Epps Whisper. For a long time, we've been wondering, what did he say during the breach at the Capitol? You see the still of him whispering into the ear of a young man known as Ryan Samsel. And for some time, we've been wondering what Ryan Samsel heard. And he reports that to us today, courtesy of our friend Julie Kelly on Twitter at Julie_Kelly2. She also writes for American Greatness, where the article explains exactly what happened. You see, here is the slow-mo replay in GIF form of Ray Epps doing the whisper, walking right up to Samsel, grabbing him, whispering in the ear, cameras jerking around, and it moves on. Now, Ray Epps, as we've talked a lot about here, has been somebody who's been on the FBI's most wanted list for some period of time. In fact, this is the FBI post that is still up from the Washington field office, posted originally on August 17, 2021. after the FBI has had a ton of time to investigate this. They say the FBI is seeking information regarding people who committed violence at the Capitol. Committed violence. If you recognize someone, please send in a tip. And so if you just pause and you look through this, do you see anybody in here? Oh my goodness, there's so many different people here. Do you see this one right here? Oh yeah. Third row, third column, Ray Epps. And we see his face, so that's him. The FBI seeking information about him. Engaged in violence, right there. Still public and still available for anybody to see. And so what did happen there? What was the whisper when the breach took place at the Capitol? Well, the article comes from our friend Julie Kelly, and she put together a great piece. And here is what she says in this story. They write, Julie writes, January 6 defendants. They talk, and one of them says, Ray Epps, they're protecting him like crazy. Written by Julie Kelly, amazing follow on Twitter, has been doing incredible work on January 6. She brings us the following. Said he's one of the most consequential and complicated individuals involved in the events of January 6. Ryan Samsel, the man we saw in the hoodie with the backwards hat. Ryan Samsel there with Ray Epps. And here is the story. She says that he was a Pennsylvania barber, drove to Washington the morning of J6 with his girlfriend. They wanted to watch the speech. Couldn't hear the president, though. So they walked towards the East Capitol Hill, where there was another large group, including some people of the Proud Boys, which we talked about here. They assembled. Samsel soon found himself on the front lines of a protest the national media and Joe Biden immediately branded as an insurrection. We saw the video. Samsel approaches a weak line of Capitol police officers, bike racks there, shortly before 1 p.m., the time before Congress convened a joint session. Wearing a hoodie underneath a jean jacket, wearing the red MAGA hat, Samsel appears to engage one of the officers outside. Interactions between the protesters and the police got heated. The officer in front of Samsel shoved a bike rack with an area closed sign into a few protesters, including Samsel. The officer shoved the bike rack into Samsel. Samsel grabbed the fence. He then proceeded to remove his jacket and turn his hat backwards, as if spoiling for a fight. Now, at that point, someone can be heard saying behind Samsel, "Hey, hey, hey!" A large man, also donning a red cap, grabbed Samsel's right shoulder, pulled him away from the officer. The man spoke directly to Samsel, then cupped his hand to whisper in his ear. Samsel immediately returned to the barricades, where a shoving match ensued. The racks and the police were overrun. The individual who spoke to Samsel remained right behind him. Who was that man? That man was Ray Epps. And we have a brief snippet of the video that we saw. And this came out, obviously, from January 6th. And we're going to lower this volume a little bit. But we can see people approach. And there is some shouting. Cops are there. We see Ryan Samsel with the red hat on, front and center. Let's move myself out of the way here. And things are about to get a little bit heated. We fast forward. The cop here apparently pushes the bike rack. Samsel now is going to take off his jacket, as we see here. And he's still standing there, flips his hat around. Hey, he's getting aggressive. And Ray Epps walks right in and whispers in the ear. Oh, there it is. Oh, there it is. Then things get a little bit more aggressive. And the pushing and the shoving on the bike rack start. And that's where the breach occurs. So she tells us all of that now being revealed, that it would become a pivotal moment in the events of January 6th. In fact, this is a snapshot of Epps whispering to Samsel. It remains on the Twitter page, the one that we just saw. Now, what Epps, the still uncharged agitator, who first became the subject of public scrutiny, said to Samsel in that iconic exchange has been the subject of speculation for more than 2 years. What did he say? The New York Times reported that Epps told the FBI tip line that he attempted to de-escalate the situation between Samsel and the police. Epps gave the same story to the Select Committee. Okay, you know, that's not why we're here, is what Epps told the committee about his interaction. Epps told Liz Cheney, he said, no, I said, you know, that's not why we're here. He said, you've got to be peaceful. I pulled him back and told him, it's not what we're about. That's interesting, because the FBI seemed to think that Ray Epps was involved in violence. And there's multiple other angles of this where Ray Epps appears to be involved in violence, including from the day before, where he's saying, go into the Capitol, into the Capitol, into the Capitol, communicating that he's got the intent to, you know, go into the Capitol. There's other videos of him pushing the sign in, a big flag, and he's at the front line in multiple different locations. So the FBI thought he was violent, so much so that they posted his picture on their Twitter post that's still up. The pipe bomber's on here too. So they're trying to dig into what he has done. He tells everybody, I was just saying be peaceful. Well, doesn't seem peaceful because the FBI thought he was violent, and there's video evidence to show the same. Samsel's initial FBI interview, according to the Times reporter, Alan Feuer, provided a similar account. He said Samsel said the same thing, telling investigators that a man he did not know came up to him and suggested he relax, according to a recording obtained by the New York Times. He came up to me and said, dude, his entire words were, relax, the cops are doing their job. But the story has changed a little bit. Samsel apparently told the New York Times that Epps said, relax, the cops are just doing their job. The story has changed. But in a phone conversation with Julie Kelly and American Greatness last week, Samsel disputed Epps's testimony and contradicted what he reportedly told the FBI a few weeks after the Capitol protest. So the real question is, what did Epps say to Samsel? Epps said to me, don't pull. I've got people. We have to push through. That's a quote obtained by Julie Kelly from American Greatness. Don't pull. I've got people. We have to push through. Now, Samsel, arrested on January 30th, 2021, has been behind bars ever since. Prosecutors said that Samsel does have a criminal history, and that justified his pretrial detention. That doesn't really matter. There were other people that also didn't have any criminal history and were detained. I think Zachary Rehl was one of them. The government also maintains that Samsel was on parole. He says he was on probation. Now, Samsel is in custody at the Metro Detention Center in Brooklyn. Apparently, that facility houses extremely dangerous, violent, and escape-prone inmates. And Julie acknowledges. She says, you know, considering his record and his public silence on the matter over the past 2 years, Samsel's new claims about what Epps said to him does warrant some skepticism. But a closer look at the court docket shows how the DOJ is intentionally delaying Samsel's trial. Because maybe we want to talk about this stuff at trial. Maybe Ray Epps gets another subpoena that he has to dodge during the trial. And maybe the DOJ is delaying because they don't want this to come out at all. Because a trial forces some accountability. You get to call witnesses. We have the confrontation clause in this country. Amazing. Unless you're Ray Epps. Nobody cares. And so presumably, they don't want the public to learn more about Epps's involvement. Samsel said prosecutors are protecting him like crazy. Samsel's case file seems to support that view. Prosecutors did not indict Samsel until 7 months after his arrest. Violation of federal law requires the government to file charges within 30 days. Samsel said during that time, the government tried to coerce him. They tried to get him to say Epps did not instigate any misconduct. And they wanted him to say that Joseph Biggs, a Proud Boys leader who was recently convicted of seditious conspiracy in a nuts trial that we covered, was carrying a gun even though he was not. Biden's DOJ charged Samsel 7 counts, including multiple assaults. He's been transported to 16 different prisons, attacked by DC guards, also requiring medical attention due to his injuries. Trial date has been moved numerous times. They've added co-defendants and new charges, a tried and true delay tactic. 2 days before both sides were expected to file a schedule in preparation for an April 24th trial, Matthew Graves filed a 4th superseding indictment against Samsel, forcing another postponement. A 4th superseding indictment against Samsel, which is nuts. I mean, how many cases have we covered here that don't even have a second superseding indictment? Most of them, right? We're on our 4th, forcing another postponement. So now we talk about our right to a speedy trial. Maybe Samsel just wants to have his day in court so he can air all of this out. You've got evidence? Prove it. Let's go. So the DOJ keeps delaying, and the judges just keep rubber stamping it. Well, this is a complicated conspiracy case or sedition. This was an insurrection in America. Samsel's new trial date is now October 23rd, which means he's going to have been behind bars, listen to this, for nearly 3 years. 3 years behind bars with no trial. A Biden appointee is overseeing the case. Have you ever read the book, The Count of Monte Cristo, or seen the movie? This is America. 3 years, no trial. Samsel now faces 12 charges, languished in jail for more than 28 months. Epps is a free man, even though Graves' office could easily indict Epps on many charges. Samsel, who like Epps never entered the building. Well, I'm pretty sure Epps entered the building. My take is Epps entered the building. I believe Epps did enter the building from his transcript. It's common belief that he didn't. But her point remains. Epps was more violent and more active than many people that day and was never charged. Why isn't Epps charged with obstruction? In other words, I think Epps did worse than Samsel. Why isn't Epps charged with the obstruction felony? Since he was among the first set of protesters that eventually forced Congress to suspend the session, why is Epps not charged with impeding law enforcement and civil disorder? He, like Samsel, crossed police barricades and remained on restricted grounds for at least 90 minutes as officers fought with the crowd. Further, Epps was wearing military garb, including a tactical vest, pre-planning for violence. And what about Epps and his text boasting to his nephew at 2:12? I was in front with a few others. I also orchestrated it. He told the January 6th committee that he had helped get people there. People have been charged for a lot less. Why does Epps continue to evade prosecution? So you can see an amazing article, and I'll absolutely invite you to go over to American Greatness to finish reading it. Because Ray Epps continues to mysteriously evade any consequences of his action. And as we learn more, we now have an alternative take. Maybe Ray Epps said something differently during that very curious whisper to Ryan Samsel. Samsel's in prison, been in prison without a trial for a long time. Sounds like he would like a trial, but hasn't been afforded one. Meanwhile, Ray Epps is driving around in his very nice RV, avoiding subpoenas, avoiding any consequences for his actions. So be sure you're following Julie Kelly on Twitter, at Julie_Kelly2, and at American Greatness, doing great work, continuing to bring truth to us all. And so that, my friends, is it for us on the day. Locals just brought this over. says, who's getting swatted today? Who's getting swatted? Oh, gosh, I don't know. What is this? Hopefully not me or that guy. Amazing. All right. And so that, my friends, is it for us on the day. Definitely make sure you're hitting that like button. We very much appreciate it. Let's see what you guys have to say about all of this and more. We're going to check out the super chats and the amazing support that you've sent in on this beautiful day. Let's see what we're getting into. My goodness, I clicked some buttons here that really discombobulated my mind map. All right. And so from our friends in the House. Yes. Okay. So this is where we're starting today. We wanted to welcome and say thank you to our supporters and our new members. Patrick brought in Jerry, Issa Project, Captain Flatastic, Don Davidson, Code Red's in the house. We want to welcome Suzanne Eckstein. We got those at the top of the show. Voice brought in Rogue Rose, Bullwinkle Sprinkles, Benjamin Lewis, Dr. No Name, Mike Martin, Jay Liebgott, Nunya Bitness, Ross McCullough, Mary Paquette, and we also have, who is this? Michael Mathis in the house. And Patrick says, you trying to show me up there, Voice of the People? Thank you, Patrick. And thank you, Voice. Always being so generous. Says, I think that the HRC group would, the Hillary Rodham Clinton, taken out, I think you're talking about taking out the other whistleblower. Yeah, Hillary, the HRC crew, definitely. That's who I was thinking of when they were worried about the whistleblower being taken out. Amazing. Says, I would also like to put this out, Robert. I am now 3 weeks smoke-free. Whoo! That's amazing, Patrick. Congratulations, my man. Man, I heard that's a tough one. I heard that's a real tough one. And congratulations on that. I'm hoping you're feeling way better. I'm sure you are. I'm sure it's a whole different life. But congratulations, man. And keep it up. Keep it up. Hopefully that keeps going, man. That's very good stuff. Very good stuff. We want to celebrate you, Patrick, and anybody else out there who is abstaining from something that, you know, they probably should be. Shout out to you for abstaining 3 weeks. Thanks for sharing that with us, Patrick. Love that. Rocky Water says, hey, yo, Mr. Govea, your show has become a daily must-watch. Appreciate what you do and how you do it. Keep on shining that spotlight. Well, Rocky, thank you, my friend. That is such a nice compliment. I'm glad that you're here and joining us. We couldn't do it without you being here and without you supporting us and without you watching. So it's a very, very synergistic relationship, and I'm very grateful for you being here. Keep me also sane and fortified, my friends. This one came in from No Story Stagnates. Ernie B. Been a member for 5 months. Wow, Ernie. Thank you so much for joining us for 5 months. Things are getting serious now. 5 months, that's a long time. We get to know each other after that time. I'm glad that you joined us. A Bad Poet says, since we all know you can't eliminate yourself, why have those eliminations not been reopened and properly investigated? So you can't eliminate yourself with multiple death methods of death. I think there was the Hillary, wasn't a Hillary person like hanging from a tree with 2 shots to the back of the head and their heart was ripped out of their chest and sacrificed on an altar to Satan, and they said it was suicide, something like that? Oh no, that guy did that to himself. Don't worry about it. Are you sure? This looks like somebody else did this. No, I've seen it before. I read it in a book one time. All right. So that's from A Bad Poet. Good to see you, A Bad Poet. We had, hey, John McGarvey's in the house. Says, hey, Rob, great stream today, as always, my friend. I just want to make a point and then ask a question about it. 2 comments coming in. Thank you, John. Says, I've noticed that judges and prosecutors have just gone completely rampant and serving a political agenda. But unfortunately, innocent people are taking the brunt of these agendas. For example, the man who defended himself in the New York City that had his bodega. What happened to this? There. That had his Bail doubled by the judge. Okay, for example, the man who defended himself in New York City that had his bail doubled by the judge says we need to take back and rein in control to a more balanced justice system. My question is, how can we take back these positions that they should not be in? I know you discussed this before, but please could you elaborate again on thoughts on how to go forward in creating change in this area? Well, I mean, there's a lot of problems. There's a lot of things that are wrapped up into this question. I mean, there's two separate problems. One is judges. One is prosecutors. There's a third problem layered in there, which is our legal system. And they're all kind of separate entities. I also think an apathetic public is a problem because people aren't as concerned about justice. People just sit around and say, oh, I'd never commit a crime, therefore the justice system is not important to me. So I think with prosecutors, there are solutions to get better prosecutors in place. I think there's a cop element to this too. How do you change the judges? You got to reform the judiciary. You got to reform prosecutorial agencies. And to be honest, John, I don't think that there is a solution in some of these situations. I think the solution is to move. The solution is location. If you're in New York City and you've got a problem with the judges and the prosecutors and how they're doing crime there, that is not going to change probably in your lifetime, I would guess. Maybe it will. I don't know. I could be wrong. They could be sick of it after certain eras, ebb and flow. And there is a wave that causes change. The reason I answer this way, John, is I look back historically. And if you plot criminal justice on a chart and we talk about, let's say on one end, like if we plot it on a chart, we're just going up and down like a wave. Or like a pendulum, right? Pendulum swings to both sides. On one hand, you've got very strict enforcement. And this country has gone through that when we had a lot of criminality back in the 1980s and the 1990s. We had the 1994 crime bill and all the 1980 bills that modified the criminal justice system because we had crack cocaine, we had all sorts of criminality. But that was a country wave, right? The whole country went through a wave on that. And we had legislative reform, we had judicial reform, we had the 3 strikes rules, we had mandatory minimum sentencing, we had major, major reforms as a result of that. But that was a big wave, and it's going to take another big wave to undo some of that or to reform some of this. And so until it gets to that breaking point, which may not be for a while, I mean, we're just sort of in this new era of woke prosecutions and political partisan prosecutions to the extent that they're at, where they're raiding their president, former presidents and current political candidates' houses, and prosecuting people on, like, this is all new. This J6, let me say this again. This is not all new, right? There's always been political prosecutions. There's always been political shenanigans and stuff going on. But what's happening now is it's very open. In my opinion, it's very naked. We can see the double standards right out on display. And we're at the point now where I think that they're going to indict and try to imprison a sitting president or a former president who might be sitting soon. So in order for that to change, there's got to be a monumental shift. So I can't give you any specific, like, we should just pass this bill and everything's going to work, because it's multiple layers. And where we're at right now is the consequence of the last, decades in terms of our justice system, of the DOJ. These things don't happen overnight. They don't evaporate overnight. So good question, John. I think that we're going to be in for the long haul. If you're looking for solutions, the solution, truthfully, I think, is to move to a better, more favorable jurisdiction, because the other jurisdictions, they're too heavy. They're too overly burdened with their old systems. They're going to collapse on themselves eventually. And it's like a black hole. The weight of the gravity of the incompetence is going to cause an internal collapse. And then they're going to have to respond to that. And people will respond either by moving or electing new leaders or passing new laws or demanding change, which is kind of the same wave that we rode back in the 1980s, late 80s and 90s, early 90s. So good question, John. This one from Fred says, Johnny said, having cancer doesn't give you the carte blanche to lie. Raskin Schiff do nothing but lie 100% of the time when they open their mouths. Impeach. That came in from Johnny. Johnny's fired up on that one. I don't blame him. Yeah, I mean, look, cancer sucks, okay? Cancer absolutely sucks. I can't stand cancer, and I'd like to see cancer evaporated from our lives. But yeah, you still got to be honest. It's like not like you don't get to, I don't know, steal $100,000 and then just say, well, I got cancer though. Honey, did you cheat on me with the neighbor? I got cancer. Oh, well, so you're a liar and a cheater? Well, you got cancer. So, I mean, good luck. All right. So that came in from Fred. This one from Patrick says, remember, I think that rumors are stronger than truth. From Patrick Parker. I think there might be some truth to that. I heard a rumor that there might be some truth to that. Hey, yo, what's up, Patrick? Thank you for that one. Yeah, I mean, people, like, that's the thing about this, even with this FBI document. They could come out with the 1023, show it to all of America, and America will say, well, I don't care. Trump's still a monster because of something else, right? Because they heard a rumor that he said something that was a white supremacist statement. A rumor about Trump stronger than the truth. I can see it. Linda, what's up, Linda R, says, it has been reported that Barr did not investigate voter fraud at all. Why? I think his response to that, Linda, and I've heard this before, was that it's not a federal function, essentially. He said, we don't investigate anything that's not at a federal level. Literally, that's the distinction. He said, well, the states investigate state fraud. If they investigate something, then that's on them, but it's not our purview. In other words, we have no basis for getting involved, so we're not getting involved. If anybody brings stuff to us, we say it's not our problem. And he dumped everything back down. Oil Smoke Jones says, afraid the informant will be killed? Killed by whom? FBI is not interested in anything preemptive? I want my tax money back. Yeah, it's funny. They're like, well, I mean, if we give you this document, he could die. And you're like, okay, well, are you investigating that? Like, who's going to kill this guy? They're like, well, no, I mean, we don't. That's not the point, though. The point is we can't give you the document because he's going to die. And you say, well, who's going to kill him? Well, I don't want to talk about that. We're not investigating that. We just need a reason to not give you the document, you know. So thank you, Oil Smoke Jones. I want my tax money back, too. Defunding the FBI would give us a little bit of that back. We'll see. Voice says, no, that's not what Ray Epps said. He said what he said. Play it at high volume. You can hear him say, when we go in, yeah, there's a lot of different clips and interpretations, voice of the people. But that's an interesting one. What did Ray Epps say? Says, you want to interview Lectern guy? I can get you in touch with him. Well, thanks, voice. I appreciate that. Maybe at some point someday. We don't do a ton of interviews here, obviously. But at some point, yeah. I've got some other J6 stuff I'm working on. And I'm going to keep, obviously we'll be in touch, hopefully. But I appreciate that. Lectern guy. You mean the guy who almost controlled the whole country? That guy? I mean, why would I not want to talk to the man who was almost in charge of America? I think he was in charge when he had that podium. That was it. It was his country, as far as I could tell. Patriot is here. What's up, Patriot? Thank you very much. Says, thank you for all your hard work, Rob. My favorite place to get the news. Thank you, Patriot. That's such a nice thing to say. And I appreciate you being here. I'm so grateful that we get to go through it together. It's a lot of fun to be able to parse through this madness in good company. And I'm grateful for you being here. And thank you for the super chat. Thanks for the very nice support here as well. Eddie says, oh, yeah, it's Eddie Oliver. Hey, Eddie, we made a special video for you. Eddie says, you know why you renamed the same letter with two different names in an earlier show? He says, because you're just a lawyer and not a computer guy or a Texan. Total idiot loser because I can't even name my files right. Us Arizona people, we can't name our files right. But the great state of Texas, they do. They never make such idiotic mistakes in the great state of Texas. Now, Eddie, hey, by the way, hope you're out there still, my friend. Did you see I made the video about the Dallas, Texas, and their mandatory pronoun usage? That is for you, my friend. Check it out on the channel. Dallas, Texas. If you work for Dallas, Texas, you now, for the government, you now are going to be getting a big stack on pronoun usage and gender transition guides for everybody in the government. We read through it. It's crazy. There's like we were asking ourselves, would you even get the same benefit if you had cancer or if you were going through a divorce or if you had a loved one die or something like that? They have like a whole, like if you're a manager in Dallas now, you might now be a gender transition manager in addition to your other managerial duties. It's pretty amazing. So what the hell's going on over there, Eddie? We don't have that going on here in Arizona yet. Anyways, Dolphin Fan is the man. Thank you, Dolphin. Brought in 5 new members. Man, so tomorrow is going to be lit in our member-only chat. We got Samantha R's coming in. Robert E. Holy F, my S stinks is joining us. Danny Law in the house. Love that, Danny Law. We got Barb Bell is in the house as well. And so thank you very much to Dolphin Fan. Very grateful for that. And hey, another one from Eddie. Says, Rob, I was also wondering why you don't cover Ukraine more. It's obviously a Democratic money laundering operation. I mean, Biden Inc. centers around Ukraine. Also, they just blew up the dam over there. Major escalation. You're right about that, Eddie. We talked a little bit about it this morning. You know, there's so much news to cover. It's hard. It's hard. I can't cover it all. You're right. I mean, I have an interest in talking about Ukraine. We got into it a little bit this morning and on the member stream. And, you know, a lot of stuff we talk about doesn't make it to segments on YouTube. So we talk about, you know, the headlines in the morning. And we talked about that this morning and what's going on there. But I have to pick, you know, I have to be selective on what we talk about. And generally, as a general rule, we focus on mostly domestic stuff because that's really where more of my expertise is. You know, I've got more expertise studying the law rather than foreign policy. So we focus on that. But we also focus on police, prosecutors, and politicians, also known as the government. So prosecutors, you know, law enforcement, FBI, DOJ, you know, those are prosecutors and law enforcement agencies. And so I use those as guideposts. And when then things are a little slower, we'll sometimes, you know, venture out. Like yesterday, we had a bunch of culture stuff that we did on, you know, the transitioning laws that are happening. And so we sort of ventured out into that. We did a little crypto this morning. And Ukraine, I think, is very important. And we may get to it. But the news is just so fast. That's the only reason, Eddie. I agree with you. I agree. It's very important. It is something that it feels like both parties are protecting, like this really sacred calf. And it's a strange thing that's going on. But thank you, Eddie, for being here, my friend. Hopefully you're doing well. Jia Jiang. Look at this one. 16 months. Oh, my gosh. That's just incredible. We're basically like relatives now, Jia. I think you know where my sock drawer is at this point. I mean, 16 months. Holy moly. Thank you, Jia, for being here for so long. Says, thanks for a great show as always. Super cool. Very, very cool. I very much appreciate that. And I hope you're enjoying it, being a member. Hopefully you're getting some good use out of the extra content that we put out there. Long time. I mean, that's like, we haven't had memberships that long. So that is really, really cool. Thank you for being here, Jia. A couple others came in from our friends. Dolphin Fan gifted 5, only got 4. Please check. Scam from American Dreamer. You know, I've seen that happen before. I don't know if it's a YouTube thing or what, why they drop those out. But thank you, Dolphin Fan. Hopefully number 5 got it. I mean, ridiculous. Curtis Bartle. Hey, Curtis, thank you. Curtis says, thanks for being you. Thank you, Curtis. I very much appreciate that one. No question on that, but a very nice dono on the day. Thank you very much, Curtis. American Dreamer. We got Bill Kelly with the first super chat from Bill. What's up, Bill? Thanks for sending this one in. Says, Range versus Garland, gun control, as it sits, was found unconstitutional for nonviolent felons. Time for a federal class action lawsuit. Wow. Okay, so that is an interesting one. I am not familiar with this case. Let's see if this was, is this just drop? Third Circuit case. I got to look into this one. But to answer your question, Bill, generally, you can't, so it depends on who you want to sue. But if you want to sue the government, very difficult thing to do because of standing requirements. So I'm not sure who you would sue or what the claim would be, but certainly you could bring litigation. But just as a general rule, as a general legal answer, the government makes it really hard to sue the government. They tell you that you don't have standing if you have a political grievance, unless you've been, actually damaged, like you've got standing because you were actually injured in something. A class action wouldn't be the right mechanism because they'll say, you know what a class action would be? Just go vote. Just go get everybody to go vote and change the rules. So it's a great question. It kind of depends on what you're asking to do and accomplish. But certainly Range versus Garland. I've got that queued up. I don't know if this is a newer update or something else. But anyways, thank you very much, Bill. I appreciate the support and a great question. Hey, Bruce Rice, 8 members, 8 months, says it is easier to be fooled than to convince someone they have been fooled. That sounds truth to me. That sounds accurate. Yeah, that sounds accurate to me. People do not like to be fooled. And they really do not like, really, people are they don't like to be fooled, but they're kind of okay with being fooled. It's like, all right, you got me. What people really hate is other people knowing that they've been fooled. And so here, if you convince someone that they've been fooled, they know that you know that they've been fooled, and so they dig their heels in to not be fooled. Love the show, Rob. Thank you, Bruce. Thanks for being here, Bruce, for 8 months, my friend. Super cool. Hopefully you're getting some good value out of the membos. We work hard for our membos. I know, some people don't, but we do extra content almost every day. You get a Saturday show. We really try to make it valuable. So thanks for joining us, Bruce, for so long. We had another one from Trigger Warning. Says, been here for 3 months, says, I'm here to give Rob moral authorization. Well, that's great news. That's great. I'm here to give Rob, I need it. I need moral authorization. I need moral authority. Indeed. I need it, baby. Thank you for giving it to me, Trigger Warning. We have this one from Indoctrination. Indoctrination over on Locals. Thank you for joining us on Locals. Says, because it's Tuesday and we love what you do. Well, thank you. Indoctrination in the house. Indoc. Good to see you, Indoc. Well, I appreciate that. It is a beautiful Tuesday. In my view, says you are the new news, in my view. Which is your name, in my view. You are the new news, in my view. Well, thank you very much for that, in my view. I think there's some accuracy to that. We can talk about stuff here in a format that the old news can't really do. They're stuck in formats. Most of the news shows you watch are 30 minutes of ads, 20 to 30 minutes of ads. You can't get any depth. You can't get any substance. They don't even show you the real documents. They just give you snippets and bits of it. And I think that, what we do here is not necessarily for everybody, right? It's a lot of politics. It's a lot of law. And some people want a little more balanced show where you get some of the pop culture stuff and you get this and you get this and you get this. And so there's always going to be a place for, the general variety news shows and all of that stuff. But I do think that there's a framework for more depth here. And the fact that there's an interest in that is just awesome. It means we can really do a lot together, learn a lot, spend some really quality time unpacking these issues, and it's just a cool thing. So thank you for joining us and for supporting us as we do it, in my view. Here, Eddie's responding to the comment on the pronoun thing. He says, yeah, I saw the pronoun thing. He says, I'm pretty sure those people in Dallas came from Arizona. That was a slam dunk, Eddie. Well done. Very well done. That's why they're all pronouned out. They came from Arizona and California. It's a zinger. All right, you got me. It's okay though. We have Dallas surrounded by sanity, the rural areas. So those Arizona transplant pronoun people who just arrived in Dallas, they'll be cordoned off. You're not going to let them out. They're going to be quarantined. Don't let them out, Eddie, lest they infect the rest of Texas. Here, Goofy for Jesus says, Moshi Moshi, great job as usual. Well, thank you, Goofy for Jesus. You know, if there's anybody to be goofy for, Jesus is at the top of the list. Let it all out. We also are going to check Twitter. And Jigam says, doing a test. Can you see if your Braveheart short plays with audio on Telegram? Can you see if your Braveheart short plays with audio on Telegram? Let's see. No, it's not playing. It's here. It's not playing with audio, though. I think it's because we're streaming to Telegram. But as soon as we're done streaming, I'm sure it's just going to be amazing. Oh, can I download it? Let me try that. Thank you, V. That's a great question. That's a great point. Let me see if I can. Yes, I can do that. All right, so here we go. Man, V, Jigam and V, helping me get through the show. All right, how about this? Now, I still don't know if there's audio here. Maybe it was playing with audio. Oh, wait, here it is.
It's all for nothing if you don't have freedom.
Yes.
It's all for nothing if you don't have freedom.
It's true.
It's all for nothing if you don't have freedom.
It's true, man. It is all for nothing if you don't have freedom. From our friend Jigam Geegum, Meme Smith extraordinaire. Thank you for that, Jigam. You know, that's one of my, I would say, top movies. I don't know if it's like one or top three, but it's up there. Love Braveheart. Loved it my whole life. And it is about freedom, man. You got to fight. What will you do without freedom? I don't know. I don't know what you'd do without freedom. I don't like the sound of it, though. So thank you very much, Jigam, for sending that one in. And all the good stuff, man, that came in today. Very fun stuff. And V says, don't forget to check Twitter, which I forgot yesterday. You're right. I forgot that one yesterday. So we're going to go over to Twitter and say hello to our friends over there before we wrap it up for our member-only after party, which is where we are going to be hanging out here for a little bit. But let's see who joined us over on the stream. And who do we have in the house? Oh, Troublemaker Jonah says, pardon Ray Epps. Pardon Ray Epps. He hasn't been charged with anything. I mean, he hasn't been charged with anything. There's nothing to pardon him for. What are you going to pardon him for? Here, this one came in from blah, blah, blah. From Danny McWilliams. Says, blah, blah, blah. If you work for the government, they take you all to court. They get the footnote in the file. Then you get rich on a book deal. No one buys the book. They still make millions. Sounds like a lot of hush money to me. Viantica says, you can pay for all the corruption in the world when you control the money printer. Good stuff there from V. And says, yeah, what does it matter? There is no, you know, there's this, it reminds me of this clip, V, from Chamath Palihapitiya. He does the All In podcast. He said that there are 100 people in this world who control the money flows. They're all men. And you don't even know who they are, but they control the money flows. And he was talking about it. He said, I want a seat at that table. Bill Barr equals CIA. This one came in from the researcher. It says former AG Barr has been working for the CIA since the 70s. Well, that makes sense. Puts things into perspective. Barr's public statement, neither Obama nor Biden were being investigated. This looks like an interesting clip here. So check that one out on my timeline from the researcher. We also have Tesla owner, Kung Pao says, Raskin lied, hair follicles died. Base Twitter watcher of the watchers here from Kung Pao. Good to see you. Troublemaker Jonah says, pardon Ray Epps. And Al Holman says, hey, it's going to be a busy summer. You better order more greens, young man. You're right about that, Al. You do. We got to stay properly fortified. And punishment by prosecution is the current goal. Convictions would just be a bonus. Exactly, right? The process is the punishment. That's the pain. You're totally sidelined. And we had this picture over on Locals. Certainly that's not real. I mean, right? It kind of looks like it could be real. We'll just let us believe that it's real. That was Jamie Raskin and, one of those hats. And so that, my friends, is it for us on the day. Thank you, everybody, for the very generous super chats and all of the lovely support that you sent in today, including Braveheart. But that is it for us. We are going to leave it there. Members, stick around. If you're a YouTube member, grab the Telegram link so you can join us on Telegram, which is where our after party will be. It's another app. It's a great app. There's a lot of good conservative content creators on there, and it's where our chat continues. We also will be on watchingthewatchers.locals.com, so come and check us out over there for all of the extra member goodies. Don't forget to grab your Field of Greens, courtesy of our friend fieldofgreens.com. Save 15% off with your code Robert. We want to be fortified here, all right? When the impending collapse continues, we got to be strong. We can't be little weaklings. So we have to be fortified. Get your Field of Greens over from Field of Greens. And we had one last dono come in. Hey, thank you very much, Linda. Says Antifa whistleblower in jail says there is 100 plus Antifa in jail for J6, and they had a huge meeting 2 days before. Thank you. How do I find you on Twitter? So that's news to me. Yeah, I'd be very curious on that. Antifa whistleblower says 100 Antifa in jail. Yeah, send me a link. Send me an email. Send me a tweet. But I am just at Robert Govea, at Rob Govea ESQ. So you'll see me right here on Twitter. That's what I look like, at Rob Govea ESQ. And we would love to connect and see you over there. But okay, that is it for us on the day. Fieldofgreens.com. Save 15% with code Robert. If you like this mind map software, you of course can get it for yourself. Create a free account. SpotlightLawyer.com/mindmap. We also want to thank the mods and our meme smiths who mod the fort down for us and keep things nice and orderly. We appreciate you guys. The Anticus Prime, our friend K Bean, Just Cause in the house, playing hooky. We've got Ronnie Cole, our friend Zulu, Beyond Geostars, Zach Nichols, John Allen, Janek909, our friend Dog Digger, and Donut Mind Me, modding down the fort for us and clipping away, making things nice and reliable here. Thank you to our friend Sleepy Dog Lee on Twitter, our friend Geegum Geegum for the amazing Braveheart meme, and our friend Nathan N810 who join us all on Locals. We're grateful for everybody over there. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day. Now, we will be back here tomorrow morning with our member-only stream. We'd love it if you join us, but if not, no problem. We'll see you here at the same time, same place to do it all again. And we need your help so that together we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. C. Wolf just said, hey, Rob, Barr is spineless. He's a BSer. Said the feds just prosecuted a New York man over a Clinton meme under 18 U.S. code. Barr could have done something about the election. Thank you for that one. So this one came in from C. Wolf over on Locals. He says that is BS. He prosecuted a man over a Clinton meme. Well, the feds did. Yeah, I think they're saying that was... No, you're absolutely right about that, Seawolf. You're absolutely right. They could have done something. They didn't do anything. They could have done anything. They don't do anything because it was in their interest to not do so. So that, my friends, is it for us on the day. Make it a beautiful night. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye, everybody.